We're so glad to have you here. You're our absolutely beloved lecturer of ours. Apart from the fact everything you touch becomes gold, so I hope you will cover with gold our participants. Thank you for your kind words, and I'm really very glad to come here. So I hope at some point I will come here and will be able to stay for a bit longer, because I usually come in, I talk to you, and then I have to leave. So maybe finally we'll manage to meet for longer. Of course, Sławek, of course. Let me ask you, because I don't like the word lecture. I don't like to be lecturing ex cathedra. I like to discuss things. So this is not a lecture. So this discussion of ours will will be called the anatomy of disaster, and disaster will be, at the end, and with a question mark at the end. I know that's if you, have you had a chance the movie based on which I would like to make this anatomy, the Fools by Tomasz Wasilewski, that was screened on Wednesday here. Have you seen that? Okay, there is. Oh, we have two people. That's fantastic. I'm so sorry there were just a few of you, so we will be more theoretical than practical. But I hope that it will give you something. Why did I decide to such a topic? For some of you, this might be a bit too easy. Maybe it would be good to if there was more, there were more authors who already have something under their belt. But it will be also a tale which will allow you. Maybe you will recollect some time in your life when, after the successes, you will stumble. Maybe not that you will fail, because it's not that like that. That something will go wrong. And now this movie, because two gentlemen have seen that film. Can you tell the group, you who have seen that film, in one or two sentences, maybe in one sentence, what this movie was about for you? But not you don't try to give us a shortcut. Don't tell me about the content, but tell me what this film is about for you. It is so that it's film about love, of course. All previous movies of the directors were about love, and for you? So, what did you understand at the end? But what occurred at the end between the two protagonists? Okay. Why am I drilling this subject so much? Because what you were saying, of course, it is so. It's a film about love. It's a movie about a very complicated human relationship, about very complicated family relations. However, it is also one of the elements of this movie is the theme. I mean, we're touching upon the topic of inbreeding, the connection between the two family members. It's a film about incest. Okay, yeah. So, if you ever have a chance to see that movie, I really encourage you to do that. I'm very interested in other opinions. But so why this movie? Because in the understanding of the so-called market, in the understanding of the director himself, not in mine, I'll tell you why, this movie was a failure. But how did it all start? I knew that Tomek Wasilewski, the author and director of that movie, wants to tell, with his next movie, he wanted to tell a story in the series of his movies about love. He wanted to show different aspects of love. He wanted to make a movie that will touch upon an incest. So it's a taboo, a huge topic which is a huge taboo. You don't talk about it, you don't write about it, because this is something in our culture. It is something so I can't even name it, and it's uncomfortable and repulsive, horrid, that you do not even touch this subject. So we wanted to make a movie which touches a taboo, that touches a theme which concerns love, but which nobody wants to talk about, that we pretend it's not non-existent, that in our European society it does not exist, which is of course false. And we've learned about it very well by making research for that movie. So testing such situations, talking to therapists, psychologists, professors of psychiatry, we based our story on a very well-documented material. And we wrote a script for quite a long while. There are such cases, and the script, I mean, the main character was written for Dorota Kolak, probably. The actress who also played in the United States of Love, also by Tomek, and he was writing this script for Dorota. The protagonist of this script was written for Dorota. Dorota, who had a lot of bad things happen to her after the United States of Love, because she's a very mature woman and about 60 years old, more or less, and she undresses there. She loves a much younger woman, and after this very bold, very courageous role in that movie, she had a lot of hate directed against her. I'm sorry to say, but also from the acting environment and the film environment. Some people say that this role, where she's supposed to play a mother, she said that she can't play a mother who's in love with her son. She can't play it. She won't play with it. We had to respect her decision, even though we really wanted to convince her. And we were looking for another actress who would want to accept this role. We didn't start the casting. We were thinking about whom do we know, which actresses do we know, who would be fitting for that role, both for me and for Tomasz. And we had the idea that it should be Haya. I'm calling her Haya. Yes, Hajecka, who played in Agnieszka Szumowska's movie now. Tomek decided it's a great if it's not Dorota. It has to be her. I was less convinced about it. I thought that I decided that she's too androgynous. She's not feminine enough. There's no warmth in her. And I said, okay, Tomek. So just we are both convinced about this, that this is the right actress. Let's make test shooting. And never before I met Chaya personally. We never had any contact. I knew her only from this on the scene and in the movies. And when I started to talk about her before the test shooting, I changed my mind because I noticed that she's a woman who has a lot of warmth in her, who really can carry this role. That would be a very different Marlena because Arlena is the name of the protagonist. So she would be a different Arlena than Dorota Kolak would have been. But after the test shooting, something totally incredible happened. Before I managed to see, before I saw those test shots, Tomek called me and said, "You are absolutely right. She's not the right person." So I didn't watch the test shots because if he changed his mind so decisively, I decided I decided not to watch it. We said, okay, this will not be Chaya. So who should that be? And the next candidate was Dorota Pomykała. Dorota Pomykała, who, and again, we decided that certainly it is a good idea that Tomek spent with Dorota some time on the sea preparing for the role. But during the preparations, during the meetings between the director and the actress, such weird things started to happen that I decided that we will not work like that. That this is absolutely impossible to work in such conditions as Aktorka tries to create for us. So we resigned from this cooperation and we were left again with nothing and with nobody. And then, meanwhile, there were rehearsals with actors because Dorota Kolak was to play a different role, the friend of the protagonist. And during the meetings, during the rehearsals, Dorota realized that it's not a movie about incest, that incest is one of the elements, but in reality, it's a film about love. Because we're talking about a 60-something woman and 40-something man. We're telling a story about their relation and the problems in the relationship, but until the very end, the viewer does not really know where these problems stem from. And because Dorota saw that it's not a movie just about incest, that it says about something much wider, much bigger, we decided with Tomek that we will try to convince her once again. At that time, she was playing something in Kraków, so I went to Kraków. We met first without Tomasz, and I used an expression which convinced her, as she said later in interviews. I said, Dorota, because she was afraid that it will be a story, like a retail store story that, like a gossip that mother sleeps with his son, and she really didn't want it. I said, this is a story from a Greek tragedy, because at some point you would like to turn back the situation, turn back the clock and take back your decisions, but the fate took over from you. And this is exactly like in Greek tragedy. Whatever you do, your fate gets at you. And this convinced Dorota, and she agreed to play this role. But meanwhile, of course, I had to finance this movie. So please imagine that at the stage of financing that movie, that at the stage of presenting the script to various funds, we financed this movie just like that. There was no problem at all. At the stage, in the script, it was clearly written that this is a movie that this is also, there's an element of incest. Nobody had any problem with that. Just nobody. Everybody was absolutely thrilled by the script, how it's written, how the story is said, how it is all led, how this is important because it tackles the taboo, which nobody talks about, and we really had no problems with financing that movie. So we financed it, we started the shooting, and then it was very difficult for us because we we made the shot. We shot the movie, and we went to the set, and then COVID was struck immediately, and we had a co-production, and it was very difficult. You couldn't travel around. We did a lot online. It all took forever. So we finally closed that movie. We made it, and this is where problems started. This is what I said in the beginning started. You could say that there was it was a failure of ours. So Cannes was waiting for that movie a lot. We got questions when we will finish. Will we submit this movie to Cannes? And of course we submitted it to Cannes, and we got a very positive from Christian Jean. He's the director of the feature section and of the main competition. And Christian, he loved that movie. And he was saying, yes, we will convince the selecting committee. Of course, this will not be the main competition, but it will be, it will be in Cannes. And for a very long time, for several months, we were absolutely convinced that we will be at Cannes. We maybe not in regard, but maybe some other side section. And then Christian called us and said, we were talking about this. It moved the selecting committee. We were discussing everything, but he was giving us this hope at all times, bordering on certainty that we will get to Cannes. And then 12 hours before the press conference, when there is an announcement of the titles that made it to the competition in other sections in Cannes, we get a phone from Christian, who's crying into the receiver and saying, unfortunately, by 2 or 3 votes, this part of selection committee who decided about movies who were against the movie, they won. And unfortunately, this movie will not be shown in Cannes. And that was the first hit we had to get. This was the I don't want to use the word failure because Tomek doesn't like it, but it was the first touch of this certain lack of success. Why did we feel that also like this? Because until then, me and him, we went from one success to another. Every movie was a big festival, it was a big award, and suddenly it occurred that in this most important festival of all for us, we were rejected, so we started to a race against festivals. Janek Naszewski is selling that movie, so both them and us, we were sending that movie to different festivals. Of course, it was Venice, Orizzonti, it was Locarno, all even smaller festivals. There was a Berlin on the way. Berlin also rejected that movie. Then we managed, because I knew the new director of Berlin was twice. In the same year, we wanted to have the leverage in the form of Berlin, or for Cannes, the leverage in Berlin. And then when it occurred that we have neither Berlin nor Cannes, I showed once again, because the Berlin saw only the first raw version, and I sent it again to Berlin. They gave us some hope, but then again they said that it failed to get into any section. Not the competition, not encounters. It was not in any section, not in Panorama. They rejected us everywhere. So even smaller festivals, it occurred that this is not possible. Nobody wants that movie. So due to this, I called to Karlovy Vary, to Karel, and I said, Karel, help us. Help me. I knew that it will be shown in Nowe Horyzonty in Poland, but I really wanted this movie to start its career somewhere abroad, that it would come back to Poland with something, at least it had a world premiere before the Polish premiere. Karol, who who watched that movie and he liked it a lot. He called me and said, "Listen, this is really a great movie, but I can't take this movie to to the competition because this is not a movie for my competition audience. My competition audience, which comes to the presentations in Karlovy Vary, to this big 600 strong hall, is not the audience for this movie. They will not understand this movie. They will not experience that movie. They will not be able to see that movie." And Tomek is too renowned as a director for me to show it in some side section. So I think, okay. So I said, even I think Marta is thinking in a simple way, in a similar way. Even in Karlovy Vary, this was not accepted. So I said, okay, bad luck. We'll show it in Nowe Horyzonty. We submitted it to Gdynia, and it was accepted for the competition in Gdynia. Well, tough luck. But then it occurred that Karel opened a new competition in Karlovy Vary, which just a normal competition with awards for international movies too, for the ones that are, due to the topic or form, they do not fit his main festival stream. So he said, if you want to be in Karlovy Vary again, this is the place for you. We said, oh, of course, yes, we want to be there. And the film was shown in Karlovy Vary without great success. It was not only in Karlovy Vary, but this film had very lukewarm reviews, very neutral. These were not like reviews, they were like 3, 4, 5 sentences taken from different utterances, my utterances, Tomek's utterances, and interviews from the actors, and compiled together. As if these journalists who watched that movie didn't know what to write about that movie, how to refer to that movie, what to think of it. I think this taboo about incest influenced what people want to say about that movie, what they want to write about that movie. For me, that was a very fascinating experience, very sad too. Also a very fascinating, but still a very fascinating situation. What is very important? During the presentations, during the screenings, there were meetings with the director, with the crew, with me, and the people who stayed at these meetings, because not everybody stayed, as usual, many people leave. But those who decided to stay, we had a very fascinating discussions. Those who found something for themselves in that movie, apart from the incest. Some of them, just like you, not really even noticed, just like you didn't. There's this word incest is presented at the end, where the explanation about this relation is discussed, is revealed. But for me, the fascinating thing was that people started to notice a lot of different things in that movie. For me, this movie is also about motherhood. It's a film about the motherhood, about woman who, in order to be with one son, left behind 2 other children. I will not give you a spoiler. I'm really pity that not so few of you watched that movie. Then she tried to be the mother for everybody again. She wanted to be the mother from the beginning and just a mother. And at that moment of life, where she was, it was not possible anymore. And that was a huge tragedy for this woman. So this is not a joyful movie, but I do think that it's neither a sad movie. Another topics which are present there, the difficulty of care over a very ill person, a person who is immobilized, who doesn't speak, who cannot move. So many other aspects have been noticed in that movie. So not only the taboo that is also mentioned there. The shows in Poland were also quite fascinating because of the discussions we had afterwards. The biggest, I talk about this in Gdynia. Of course, I can talk about it right now. The film was not awarded. It was not noticed. Again, the reviews were very lukewarm and characterless, so as if people didn't know how to write about it. People didn't know how to tackle this, or they didn't write about it at all. They were walking around it as around something that somebody doesn't want to touch. I'm giving you the sequence of events, but after that I will comment and I will share our emotions that accompanied us at that time. Gdynia, we have the provision of we have the award ceremony, and those authors who do not receive any award leave Gdynia. I can't understand that. For me, this is cutting away from your work, from what you did. And this also happened. I stayed in Gdynia, but Tomek just ran away from Gdynia. And he knows about it. I told him I was really bitter about that, because this is running away from your movie. This is running away as if cutting yourself off, as if you were embarrassed by what you did only because the world, the market, the audience did not accept it for many reasons. And again, this is not so that the audience or the world didn't accept it. It was not accepted by the majority of the world and the majority of the audience. But the movie had the viewership and the audience that could talk about it. We had a very interesting discussion during one of the meetings in Muranów, in Cinema Muranów in Warsaw, when we were discussing about this movie. It occurred that there's a pair, a son, a young man, but a grown-up man, like 19, 20 years old, man, with his mother. And they came to that movie totally not knowing what they will watch. They went to Tomek Wasilewski's movies, The Falls. They didn't read the reviews, and they inspired an incredible discussion on this topic. What would happen if this happened between them? What would happen if how people would react? Because this can happen to both of us, our friends, our neighbors, whom we like, whom we meet over a coffee sometimes, and suddenly we learn that it's a relationship between the mother and the son, romantic relationship. How do we react? Do we still feel? Do we feel still absolutely enraged because this is something we cannot abide by? We say, if this is a true love, if it is a truly good relationship, if nobody's taking advantage from everybody, if there's no oppression, if there's no manipulation, if there's no indoctrination, if there is no mental oppression or no physical oppression, do we have the right to judge them? Do we have the right to cut off these people? Or should we accept them? We were thinking that the audience will think about it, but it seems that we failed in that aspect. Probably we made a mistake, because such a situation should take place in the story. That we should have a reaction towards the behavior of our characters, the protagonists in the movie, and not expect it just from the audience. Do you have any questions at this stage? Do you want to say something? Sorry that only two of you watched that movie. You said that according to Karl, it wouldn't be the film for the audience in Karlovy Vary. What do you mean? What sort of audience is this movie for, according to Karl, for example? In my view, this is a movie for the audience which is sensitive, the audience which is to some extent educated in watching cinema, in going to the cinema. Of course, I have don't take me wrong. I have nothing against great simple stories, but some movies require more awareness in watching than other movies. And this is this sort of a movie which require more awareness in watching. In the main competition, exactly in the same year in Karlovy Vary, there was a movie of Ania Kazajek, Fucking Born Home. And these are two totally different movies. So I don't know who of you watched Fucking Born Home. You would have a point of reference. What sort of movies in Karlovy Vary are watched? This is this sort of a movie. This can be your point of reference. So now, after all this, when the director is totally depressed and when he thinks, I won't make any movie in my life again, this is the end. So this escape from Gdynia, he didn't even tell me that he's leaving. He couldn't cope with that. And it was easier for me, even though I was surprised. But it was easier for me because I should have said to myself, Evka, you're repeating to young filmmakers and young directors that if your movie won't make it to any festival, it doesn't mean that it's a bad movie. If your movie gets to the festival but will not get any this is not a bad movie. This movie that didn't find its audience, its moment, its people. At some point, people didn't tell any tales about homosexuality in movies in the past, and now maybe there is no films about incest yet. Well, that's not exactly true because incest is shown in the movies, but this is usually violence-marked relationships between fathers and daughters. There was a movie which was created after The Fools. It is about the relationship between the mother and the son, where everybody knows that between these two there is something, but this is not confirmed. We confirmed it in our movie. We said how these people live like as a man and wife, as a husband and wife. There are scenes of sex. I mean, they're very delicate. They're very non-direct, but they are there, and we show them like a normal married couple. So we didn't want to be neither abusive, we didn't want to tell a story about the abuse, but at the same time we didn't want to be it's so indirect, there is an innuendo, something is happening there's something great that maybe was never consummated, so to speak, or was consummated, but you never know. No, we wanted to be open and bold about it. But now I wanted to come back to what we were going through. So this horrible depression of Tomasz, this escape that I did not understand, because my stance is that you can't be embarrassed about your movie even if the world rejected it, unless at some point you admit, okay, we made a bad movie, it didn't work out, these things were wrong, so I won't prefer to forget about it. Pawlikowski has a movie in his career like that, about which he never talks about anymore. It's a bad movie. He failed and he wants to forget about it, and he forgets about it, and that's okay because he decided that this is a bad movie. However, if we believe that we made a good movie, in our belief, in our mind, but you should not turn away from your work. It was much more difficult for Tomek, but I said to myself what I told you a moment ago. Remember, that doesn't mean that your movie is bad. I also asked myself one question. Ewa, have you regretted at least 1 minute you spent working on that movie? And my answer was immediately no. I didn't regret even half a minute working on that movie, because I still think that it's a very good movie. Of course, right now, after those 2 years, when I watched it recently, before I sent it for you to watch, I would make certain things differently. But this is, I think, natural that everybody who can come back and watch what they did. These are next 2 years of experience, 2 years of observation of the world, to more years of education. So maybe we would re-edit it, we would shoot something differently. But in general, I'm very happy with that movie. I'm very proud of that movie. And I would like to tell you, although you are here from different walks of life, we have producers here, we have a script writer, we have filmmakers who are looking for their path, who do all sorts of things. If anything like that happened to you, please remember that you should never ever turn away from what you did. Because even if at this moment you have the feeling of failure, it's never failure. It's a lesson that you got. Because you can be either successful or a lesson in our jobs that you will remember, which will allow us to draw conclusions, and then we move on our creative path, because this is also a certain step in our development as authors, as artists. Not always is everything successful, and maybe that's okay. I think that maybe it's good if after from one success to another, suddenly we hit the wall, even though we really believed the movie, and even though we really had a lot of grounds to believe that this movie will make it to the world and make its mark, and sort of sometimes I know it's very difficult, but you have to accept it as a lesson, not as a failure. I have this saying, motto: I'm winning or I'm learning. I'm never failing, especially in our creative professions. You always have to treat it as a step, as a development, also as a human being, because in real life it's not like everything works always. It was a path. This is something I wanted to talk to you about what you failed to do so far, even though that you could consider this to be a certain failure, of course, in inverted commas, in your the initial stage. Any questions? When you were talking about Tomasz leaving, I had this feeling that after the United States of Love, I hope that he will be making other movies, and I will be always interested in his movies. I mean, The Fools is a bit more difficult, but I was under the impression of the skill and the topic that if somebody didn't watch the movie, I would recommend it to him, the United States of Love. But this movie is also good. Of course, less people would like to see it, maybe. But this topic shows only at the end. I was aware that it's more difficult for the viewer, but it's a good movie. And I think that also in my head I have the need of the author to tackle that topic. So he made a previous movie which was successful. The most important thing is that he wanted to do these movies and express his point of view. No, so it's just for him not to leave before the end of the festival. No, I think he walked that way. He walked the way of mourning and the regret, and we're working on a new movie, so it is not so that he doesn't say that he will not make a new movie anymore. We're writing a new script. It will also be very controversial. So I'm really glad that he will sort of become complacent and say, "Oh, I mean, we're not afraid." Another sort of failure in inverted commas, of course. but we want to tackle topics nobody has been tackling so far in the Polish cinema. This will also be a very difficult topic. In the context of failures, from my experience, as you do new things, when I was working on musical videos, initially from the point of view of musicians, they wanted to change things in a way that wouldn't fit, and then I would go with their vision. But then I started to understand, as I got more experience, that these were the things that didn't work well. So the failures allowed me to understand that I should listen to my own intuition and not to give in. Everybody wants to have their say. And then finally, things were worse than I would imagine before. And then the failure builds your feeling of self-awareness and self-confidence. Yes, that's what I was talking about, that this is a sort of a lecture. So theoretically, we know less. But in reality, it doesn't mean that we know less. We have a different sort of experience. We also have an intuition, which quite often leads us somewhere. Of course, intuition combined with the reason, with the mind, makes us recalculate certain things, but the impulse, the intuition, gives us the first hint. So it's sometimes worth following. And let me reconfirm. If we think that somebody is more experienced and older, it doesn't mean that he always is right, because in our creative professions, we follow such different paths that sometimes the experience of one person cannot relate to the experience of another person. So you always have to walk your own path and look for help, of course, and hear and listen to people. But at the end of the day, express yourself, because this is what art is about. Marta, you wanted to say something. I really feel bad that I didn't see the Fools. I will make it up. It is great that you undertook that topic, and it requires a lot of courage. And for me, being a filmmaker equals courage. And I was thinking about one thing, that in the movie, it's difficult to talk about the relation of an older woman with a younger man. This is also a bit of a taboo. Every year there is some sort of a movie. I think in Poland there was some sort of commercial story about hell peninsula, but everybody was talking about the difference of the ages. It's a very marginal topic, and you went one step further. So I'm not wondering that there was no audience for your story, and that people had sore throat even thinking about talking about this film. So I hope this film will age well and it will be still very current. Yeah, this is what I also have in mind. I hope as we will be opening to the new topics that are taboo today, that this film will have its second life. And if it will not have the second life, no matter. I think it will have its place. It will be available on TV, and it will be in TVN. So I think it will also be living its life. Okay, but let's talk about your failures. But this is the second thing I wanted to say. You said beautifully about Karlovy Vary. We were talking during our mini lecture about promotion, about distribution, that will make a movie, what next, how to prepare for the market, how to position yourself, how to think about the movie. And I said today about a case of because not all of people are here from my group, when we were trying to the Songs of Love, and we were looking for international premiere, and it was Karlovy Vary among others. And the reason we didn't make it to Karlovy Vary was that there were 2 or 3 other Polish movies in the competition, and the selection committee liked our movie, but we were 3rd or 4th and and even before, so I just said that even though the Songs of Love didn't triumph in any international festival, we tried to find the audience. We didn't feel that this is our failure. We had this ambition, but at the same time, as you said, this market sometimes has some strange rules which do not match our work. Yes, you also have to be very lucky. A lot of luck. That's what you need. I also would have a question. I didn't see the fulls, but from what you are saying here, I understand that the topic of incest was revealed at the end. Why did you do this? That's my question. Why did you use this trick? Because it changes the perspective of looking at this story. Why did the director decide to reveal to the viewer the motive, this motive only at the end? We're giving hints on the way. There. It's not like we are taking the viewer totally unawares. But as I'm saying, this movie really requires awareness and focus in watching, and not everybody saw those marks, those signs. So we wanted to show a movie about normal people, about people who live, as we would say, at the end of the world. The woman is a nurse. She's an obstetrician. This guy works somewhere, but we don't know exactly where. He goes to Sweden to work, etc. They have a normal life. They have a normal life. They love each other. They take care of each other. But then something happens which causes the change in the relationship. Let me spoil it a bit for you, even though the second son, because the protagonists are 3 kids and a mom. Mom is in relationship with one son, and she left the other. It all started when they were grown up, so they were not small children, but they left her kids. She moved away with her, with one of her son, and they're living like a normal couple in that place. But then, the second son falls ill, causes the mother, says, I will not leave him for the second time, even though there's a lot of resistance from the first son, who's in fact her husband. And he's giving a lot of resistance. He says, it's not our life anymore. There's us, and we love each other. We are creating our own family. And I say, I will not leave him for the second time. And she takes the second son to her house, and here the whole drama unfolds. The son, who is paralyzed, but he knows something about, they're trying to hide things from him, and there's also a daughter. But I mean, we were sort of thinking about showing normal people with a normal life, normal problems in their relationship, and only at the end say that was not a normal couple. That was mother and the son. And how do you react to this? We felt that we wanted this movie to get this reaction. Wow, a mother and a son? How come? These were like normal people. And maybe, our neighbors are people like that. But this didn't happen. Very, very few people reacted in such a way that they sort of retold the story from the end to the beginning. They recalled all the hints that they were given on the way, and they started to think about their own reaction, what that would mean for them. I just wanted to say that for me, when I was watching this, that there was some tension, that there's something in the background. So at the end, when all these small gestures, the reaction to the touch, it was very, very, very pleasantful thing, that I felt something, under the skin. I had some association, but I was not sure if this is it. And the way this daughter behaved, there was a lot of things that were weird for me, and it gave me a lot of pleasure in watching. For me, it's a deep film about motherhood, what motherhood is, what women choose and why they choose it. This is a very, very complex movie. Okay, coming back to your failures, ladies and gentlemen, we still have some time. Okay, I'm from Italy, so if I say things in bad Polish, please forgive me. I'm I'm in the beginning of my career as a director, and I was starting in festivals where you had to make a movie within in 48 hours. So I made my first movie, and it went down very well. We won various awards. It actually went so well, and these were my first awards. That I started to think, okay, I'll try a different festival in a different city. I went to Bolzano, and I created a new group because the guys who were in the first group couldn't work with me together anymore, and the second one was a total flop. But not only in the short movie that it was bad, but also because I had a whole team against me. They didn't trust me from the very beginning. Everything I said was they considered stupid, or they were looking bad at me. So that was my worst situation in my life. Because when everything is against you for 2 weeks, this is like really horrible. After that, for a week, I was lying in bed, emotionless. But then, thankfully, one of the actors called me and said, "Come on, sorry for this." And she said she's sorry for the things she did, because she said she didn't know what happened really at that time, but there was no reason for everybody to be against me. That it was a stressful situation, because within 48 hours you had to finish your project, and it just happened like this. So really, was this no reason? Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever thought about it? I would. There was no moral reasons. I didn't do anything bad, but one of them was a person who was much older than me. He was 50 years old, and he was also a director, and he was telling me, "Okay, let me help you with this and that, in doing this project. And when you write a script, I will tell you things, and then you do as you like, because this is your project." And it occurred that he was talking to me at all times when I was to make decisions. He always wanted to say his thing. When I said that I disagree with what he says, what he thinks, he got offended. I think that this point is very important. I have to say that you have to find good people that support you, because so that these are not the people who want to be in your place, because then things go very wrong. Of course, this happens that you co-direct a movie, that you're working with a second person who's also the director on the set, but it has to be cooperation. It cannot be a one-time cooperation. It has to be long experienced, based on friendship, trust, and that you're looking in the same direction, and you see things similarly, at least in the general outline. So I think there was a reason that there were two directors, and all the rest, not knowing whom they should listen to, they behaved as they behaved. So they decided to be another third director and do the way they think, rather than listen to you, so that you would all hold it in your hand. There's always some reason. There's nothing happens without a reason. That's for sure. Officially, I was the director, but it's quite often so that there is something official, but when you scratch the surface, you look behind the curtain, things look totally differently. There's a saying: what happens on the set stays on the set. We don't talk about it usually. Sometimes I mean, you can say that the director had a tough time with the producer or with the uh, or a screenwriter. You don't talk about it because things happen. It passed, regardless of what really happened there. Somebody else? About failures, yes. I mean, if you have no failures but successes, we'll also listen to it. There were plenty of failures, just failures actually, and these failures really put me down. I was hard pressed by them. I had something similar to our colleague here was talking about, and many of you, if you started to talk about failures, you would say something very similar. But when I change my approach towards the failure, because the closest thing to me is what you said, is that failure does not exist. It is a lesson. Somebody who does not accept their failures and doesn't make mistakes doesn't learn anything. So now I can say that I have a much more bright and optimistic point of view on that. I don't feel them as painfully as I did, and I try to be 100% devoted to what I'm doing in the best possible way. And if I make a mistake, that was supposed to be then. I wanted to say because last year I was at your lecture and I was in Martha's group, and if I got one lesson from the most valuable lesson was this conviction that project is great, the story is great, but you have to work with people with whom you want to work. You said that the story or artist, if it's story against artist, you will select artist. So I just recalled that. I was just thinking because I finished my documentary, which I produced and directed, and I did everything. Ouch! Yes, ouch. But I've been filming for a long time, but this was my first mature project, and the things I know I did wrong, I can see them. I can see now how much more I know. That this is like a, a total chasm between what I did last 2 years ago and now. What I know about this after making this documentary. Not everything that I thought were bad are really bad, but there are plenty of the things I didn't know. And now I would start from a different point of departure. Now it's a bit like a class. Somebody's in, you're in the 5th grade in the school. Somebody's in 8th grade in the school, but nobody tells you that your school goes until the end of your life, and you're in next and next grade in your life. Yeah, like the work and life is like it's a school of life. Yes, you learn and learn, and then you die stupid. That somebody used to say. You, I also I found a great editor and a great music. And I don't know if it was like a magical magnetism, but I had a really good discussion with them. I saw what they're doing, and I said I want to talk to them. And I wouldn't know that because I forced many things. I said somebody makes a lot of good things, but he's difficult to talk to. And today I would think twice before entering a cooperation with somebody who's talented but difficult to work with, because it has to be, you have to trust people. You have to, it's a long cooperation. You have to have relationship. You have to have but respect, but it comes with age. You don't know it always from the scratch. You have to learn it. I can't share any film failures to share, fortunately or unfortunately. I have plenty of private failures, but I don't like to use the word failure. I use this word to negate totally, As I said, failure is not a failure, it's a lesson. I like to use this metaphor of adventure in life, that this life is a travel where we're testing out things, saying this works well, this doesn't work well, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. And everybody, at least my things, looked like failure from the perspective of other people, led me to very good things. So this is a change of path rather than disaster or a failure. So these mistakes sometimes lead you to good things. But I also would have a question to you. To what extent does this experience impact your new movie that you're working on? It's an experience, but the lesson, and maybe I will be a bit more aware. Maybe my vice, my drawback or weak side as a producer is that when I'm making a movie about which I'm absolutely convinced and I believe in it, it's like this with every movie I did. I'm not thinking. Forget about what I'm saying right now because this is horrible. I'm not thinking about the audience. I'm thinking that I must, for some reason, tell this story in this or that cooperation, and this is the force that drives me. Maybe this movie, maybe this lesson, maybe I don't know. I will be consciously or subconsciously look at the text and the project we're working on right now, thinking, hello, and how will the audience react to this? Are we sure that the audience will react as we thought they should react? On the other hand, this is something I defend myself against because I really wouldn't like such a lesson to be auto-censoring, that myself and the author with whom I work, that we would start to limit ourselves and censor ourselves. Let's say, okay, people won't like this, maybe the critics won't buy it. I really wouldn't like that. So this is now a question of balancing and testing, or maybe not. Maybe just saying to yourself, okay, we got our lesson. We know what is the taste, what this lesson tastes like, whether how bitter it is. Maybe you get all in tears. Maybe you become angry from the inside. We know how this lesson tastes like, but we want to do what we do. We're convinced about it. For me, the most important thing is conviction, faith, and honesty. If you're honest to yourself, if you do not pretend before yourself, this has a lot of potential for success, some sort of success, this or another success, but still a success. This is the most important thing. This is again a very difficult, very controversial topic. So everybody expected that we'll make something lighter, maybe a romantic comedy, ha ha ha. But then we decided, no, this is not the only movie that I'm taking care of right now. I'm developing 3 other movies, but this movie is very close to my heart, what we do with Tomek, because we're friends as human beings. Also, what Tomek proposes, this very sort of going against the grain, against and talking about things nobody discussed so far in the Polish cinema. I want to do it with him because this is something I believe in. So I hope it will not impact, not from this point of view that we will be wondering who will say what about this. Or my failure is wrong directing of my feelings towards the producers. So I got an award for my script, and I'm going around with my script with the project, and my failure is that we didn't manage to get to the realization. I'm sending this script, but it doesn't work. I never got a concrete answer. There's also another situation that Polish producers do not answer my requests. Robert Redford could well, he wrote to me back. I mean, I got his letter back. So he said, "Thank you, but I'm not interested." It took about a month. The difference between the United States and Poland is that I'm addressing a producer, and the producers do not react in Poland because it's very difficult to write one sentence in an email. Sorry, we're not interested, and this is my failure. Of course, yeah, these are emotions, and this is your feeling. However, I think a lesson. Let's not use the word failure here. A lesson would be, and it would hurt you even more if somebody said, yes, 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 we're doing this, let's do it, and started to deal with that and then abandoned it without explaining the reason. Well, that's for sure. Of course, what you're saying. I do also have situations like this. I sometimes I'm trying to answer everybody, but I have no assistant. I'm working alone. I get I get hundreds of emails a day of sometimes, and I'm not exaggerating. How many scripts do you get? It depends. I'm not counting this because sometimes and treatments. I prefer to read scripts than treatments. And if it's to be a treatment, then I prefer to meet a person. So I also select this, I'm looking and selecting the projects for myself, and I'm very busy, so I don't really have time to read new things. I have like 5 scripts in the queue, but I also know sometimes that it's a topic not for me, because it is not so that your script is bad, but maybe it didn't find a partner who would think in a similar way to you, that he would get interested in the same thing. After Ida and after the movie of Jonathan Glazer that I did, which also tackles the topic of Holocaust in a different way, but Ida was also such a movie, I started to get like dozens of scripts on Holocaust, the Second World War. So mine is about Holocaust, so it doesn't stand a chance. About Bruno Schulz. I think we were talking about this project. Yeah, that was my sort of allusion. Yeah, because I don't remember your face, but when I said about Bruno Schulz, I do remember the topics. But maybe he's a fascinating figure. But maybe something didn't grasp me in that story because I read it. Yeah, I think you sent me the treatment. Yes, I did. It was not a script. Yes, I sent you a treatment. Maybe. Can I send you a script? Yes, please send me your script. Now I have no choice. Yes, success. Now I have to not only open it, but then I have to answer your email. But I also have this affliction. I'm trying to get it cured. That I used to open and read everything because I was afraid to miss out on something great. But of course, at some point, and that's what I matured after that reading, not answering, not keeping to deadlines. It brought me to maturity that if I know that if I'm absolutely fully booked for the next 2-3 years, I'm not even opening new scripts, because from the outset I'm saying thank you, I have no time for this, or I'm finding some other nice round phrase to answer, because I'm not able to make all movies, even if they're the greatest. There are some movies who are made by somebody else which I really wanted to make, but I wanted to make them, but due to neglection, due to overlooking the answer, it went to somebody else. And these were also my lessons, but they led me to a situation where I'm always saying, okay, you have your plans for the next 2 years or 2.5 years. So only in a 1.5 year you can start working on something new, so that you have a plan for the next 2 years. Because otherwise, as you say, you don't answer. And the worst thing is when you start to dabble with things, and then things start to sort of peter out and get dissolved in reality. The producer would say, Well, the producer doesn't say, "Oh, tough luck." Well, it's never tough luck. It's a lesson that you have to draw your conclusions from. It's never tough luck because it's as painful for the producer as it is for the director. Please believe me, because we're working on several projects at once. So sometimes it might be this tough luck is distributed into different parts. For an author who works on a single project for many years, it's a much harder pill to swallow, so to speak, from my perspective. Okay, I'll send it to you. You see how many different ways are there to you should learn from that. This is also a lesson. Not on the paper. It will be in email. I'm old, but not old enough to not to be able to take an email for an answer. Okay, we still have theoretically 12 minutes, but we don't have to pull it we don't have to force it if you're tired. I came because I thought you will be talking about the zone of interest. Sorry, I can't hear anything. So this is a movie about which you don't talk. It's a movie that's waiting for its moment. It premiered in Cannes, then it was in very important festivals in Toronto, in New York, in Telluride, and in the second part of October it will be shown around the festivals, but only now. All the festivals that took place in the summer after Cannes had no chance to get the movie. In the second part of October it will be going around the festivals, but this, well, the sales agent is a American company called A24. It's a company which last year got a number of Oscars for Everything Everywhere at Once. They have like a very big collection, and they have this idea for the campaign. At some point, until the moment of premiere in the United States, which of today's played mid-December, they will not talk a lot about this movie. Please imagine that right now we have only 3 official photos that you can use. 3 of them. You're not allowed to use any other photos or works, to the extent that the Silesia Fund, which is our co-producer, there is a competition of locations in the United States, and the Silesia wanted to send the locations where Zone of Interest was shot, because there's a bigger chance for the location if it's connected to a big title, and this title is pretty hot right now. So they said maybe there. Before we send anything anywhere, we have to have an official approval. We took several pictures which didn't reveal a lot about the movie. We sent for the acceptance in A24 and say absolutely not. Only right now they're working on the poster and the trailer, so everything is prepared for the American premiere, because the American premiere will be the big bang start for the European campaign. But I can try to answer some of the questions if you are extremely interested. Can you tell us a bit about the origins of that project? I think this is also the result of my cooperation with a British producer who co-produced with me the Cold War. I think it was 2017 or 2018 in Cannes. She presented me to the British, because they presented me to the British producer who was thinking about such a movie, and we had a very nice lunch. We were talking, it was great, and then silence for about a year. And a year later, I got a script to read. And when I read that script, I decided I will do everything. I will stand on my head to be a partner in this movie, and I managed to do it. Thankfully, right now, it's a German language movie mainly. There's a bit of Polish dialogues, but generally Polish lines, but generally it's a German language movie. And I said that I absolutely have to be in this. It was thankfully at the stage when that it was known that it will be a very original movie. I will tell a few words about that. And the role of Rudolf Hess was not to be played by. Oh, I just forgot this actor. It's not Robert De Niro. No. A very handsome guy. He played in the Tales of Hollywood. Okay. Anyway, if I recall it, I will tell you. That would be horrible for me, and then I would not agree maybe to take part in this project. Maybe just to work on with Jonathan Major, who's like the. But in this movie, everything had to be authentic. We were recreating reality from 1943 to the stage that to the level that we were bringing extras from Germany, because in collective scenes where we needed German chatter, the director said he needs to have the original German chatter, that it can be made in post-production. Like this all had to be very true, and this is how I got into this project. Oh, that was very rudimentary. Yeah, of course, later this was at the stage of development, so I took part in development. And then we were to shoot in 2020, then we had the pandemics, and it was shifted by year, delayed by year. So we tried to work still, not to postpone that in time. What was impossible to do in Poland, we were searching for locations, even though everything was shut down, but we got like special permissions to work on this. This was a fascinating work. I will tell you about one thing. We were working on 10 cameras. We had 10 cameras at once every day. I was laughing that I would be going around for a year later, touring Poland and saying about the case study of this movie, because it was so difficult and fascinating work. So many things happened. And they put a bit of money in this. And they knew this project also from the very outset, from the script. So they knew what they were investing in. So because they invested, they have to sell it because they need to get back the money. It's Gutek film. It will enter the cinemas on the 8th of February. Right now, starting 27th October, because the Oscar regulation requires the movie to be premiered until the 31st of October, and for 7 days there have to be at least 7 paid screenings. So in Muranów, starting 27th October, I don't know how many screenings will be there, maybe 1. I don't know at what time. It will be shown for a week. No, when I knew it, it was like more of an anecdote that it was supposed to be this American actor that would be a total disaster. We have Sandra Hülle. She also. Do you remember the Anatomy of the Fall? And Christian Friedel. He's most known from Haneke's White Ribbon as a teacher. They're absolutely ingenious in those roles. I think the film is worth watching, not because I was producing it, I was one of the two producers, but because this movie also from formally is very innovative. For some, 98% of reviews from all around the world, I get like every week an update who wrote what. 98% are absolutely positive. Let's say 2% are mixed, and 1% are negatives. And the negatives, it's too formalized that emotions get lost in there. It is the emotions this film evokes are very very peculiar, very different from The Green Border by Agnieszka Holland, for example. So, but these emotions are also very strong. So, we still have a moment for one question. Was this your most difficult project? I would like to stay with us a bit, so that's why I'm asking these questions. From the point of view of production, yes. From technical point of view, too. Also because for example, films I did with Pawlikowski were very emotional too, and here I know the movies of Glazer. I respect him as a director, but we've never met as humans, as human beings. I met Paweł first as a friend, and then we entered cooperation, and we had different relation. Here, I met Jonathan as a director, and we started to work together for the very start. If we made another movie together, it would be totally different already. So, for many reasons, that was quite difficult, but fascinating. So I can't tell you right now which one was the which project was most difficult. Maybe Ida, with a director with whom I really wanted to work with. No, not. It's English language, and it will be in the English language, and the best director and some other big categories. Yes, last question. I have a question about your opinion. Will the film Everything Everywhere at Once, is it a chaotic, strong impression, or does it just defend itself because it's sort of distributed among a number of worlds and composed in such a way that it makes sense? Again, this is my personal private opinion, because everybody has their own point of view. So it was difficult for me to watch that movie. I did not enter that movie. I got lost somehow. I didn't watch that movie. Like, I was sat there and watched it at once. I had several attempts, but then when I realized it's about the relation between mother and daughter, then it captured me. So at third attempt, I watched it from the beginning to the end, and everything was clear for me, and I didn't have that feeling of chaos and overabundance. But yes, the first two attempts I just couldn't go through it. But it might be about the moment I watched that in. So when I grasped this part, which was important for me, because I have a daughter, but also I also have a son. But with the daughter, I have a very good relation, but a very specific one too. So this drew me in. And what is your opinion? That I need to watch it again, at least once. It got me tired. I was really captivated by several elements. I wanted to do something similar, but maybe not such big and epic. Still, but I was getting lost. And of course, I could try to sort of make up for this in structures, but then I decided that it should stay in your head, and I watched it. I watched it in a summer cinema surrounding, so it was like a perfect situation, perfect weather, full moon and open air, so it couldn't have been better, but still it was difficult. Well, I can't say if that's as good as it gets, because these conditions for that movie were not too good. Maybe it should be more more constrained. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Sorry, one more question. There can be one more question. So, if we recall this movie, I wanted to share my impression because I watched it when I lived in Berlin. I watched it in a very small, intimate cinema, which has theatrical curtains. So there's always the commercial part is separated from the beginning of the movie by this glistening red curtain, and it's perfect from the point of view that okay, this is a time to focus. If other movies start before with other movies it's sometimes difficult because you can miss the first moments because you think it's still a commercial, but in Everything Everywhere at once, that it's a relation about mother and daughter. Either I discovered it very late, or it's notified very late in the movie. Yes, when I discovered it, it just went. In my case, it was a very emotional experience just after watching that movie. So my relations with my mother was quite stormy, and I cried at the end of this movie, and I called my mother and I said, "Mom, I really wanted to love you. I really love you." And this is what the cinema is about, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your contribution.